Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Show of
Monday.
And I'm your host, the Big and Furry Bovine, and after what we saw yesterday, there's a lot to talk about today. Wanted to ask my panel, is my audio okay? Coming through okay?
Yeah, quality is fine.
Good. I'll tell you something. I got a comment on the post-game show, and I think it was a fairly valid one. Guy said he turned it off immediately because of my OBJ slander. And no. Let's be fair. Unlike the reporters who report, on the Northeast Ohio beat, I respond and I acknowledge. And I try to get people to understand that the post-game show is an emotional fan reaction to the show, to the game. And the Monday show is a more analytical look at the game. I certainly, if I gave the impression, which I think I did, that I wanted it to be a torn ACL, I really regret giving that impression because nobody needs to go through that. I also said that maybe he was faking the injury. He obviously was not. If I took a look at the film several times, as I did, I think that what he did is very much like the kind of player that he is. He's an extremely emotional person, and in the moment of chasing down somebody, he left his feet, took a swipe at the back of the guy's head, and landed into a pile of people, including guy making the tackle for the Browns, and his knee collapsed underneath him.
Correct.
And I think that's how that kind of thing can happen.
No, it looked like he injured it on the launch.
And that's entirely possible too. I mean, I don't understand, why you're diving and leaping into the air in that situation, except that he was emotional. He was, I still say that he wasn't looking for the pass. He and Baker were not on the same page, and the ball was radically underthrown. But you just don't know what the play call was, and we'll never know. But we've been watching this for some time. And so I wanted to address the Odell Beckham Jr. issue because it's natural that people are going to say, well, the reason that Baker is having a problem is that he had to satisfy Odell Beckham Jr.'s desire to have the ball in his hands, and that because he's a high-paid, high-talent guy, that Baker was made to feel like he should make Odell feel special. And he is a very emotional player who wears his emotions on his uniform, on his cleats, and on his face and in his words. And he has had several occasions where he has moped, where he has sulked, where he has yelled, all kinds of very emotional kind of guy, very talented, but rather high-strung individual. He had problems, obviously, with being banned from his college for 2 years because of financing, players in an illegal fashion. He was continually the source of kinds of stories like he's been in Cleveland when he was in New York. He's very J.R. Smith-ish in that respect, that the press would follow him wherever he would go. But I want to point something out, because we tend, if we're fans of OBJ, to really make a big to-do about the things that he's accomplished, in his career.
What happened to the audio?
Yeah, the audio's gone, Moody.
My audio is gone.
No, now you're
it
good.
went for 10 seconds.
Now it's back, but it sounded like you were talking on Mars or something.
Oh, wow, wonky.
Yeah.
All right. But I wanted to go over Odell Beckham as far as what he's meant to the Cleveland Browns. And let's take a look at 2020, because this will be probably his last year with the Browns, because as long as it takes to come back from ACL surgery, he ain't going to be ready for next year either. All right? Here's the deal. From week 1, 3 receptions, 4, then 5, then 5, then 2, and then none, of course, because you only played the one play. So what do you have there? A guy who all this season never cracked 100 yards and did not have as productive a game as Rashard Higgins did yesterday.
Correct.
I mean, they're just facts.
That's facts.
Or any receiver.
I mean, you can sit back and you can say he's a perpetual threat, but when does the bomb actually go off? And the answer is it hasn't. Not in Cleveland, it hasn't. If you look at his career, he averaged in 2014 108 yards a game, then 96, then 85, then 75, then 87, then with Cleveland 64 yards per game, then down to 45.6 this year. It has been a steady trend down. Why? He's been hurt. He is very injury prone. Am I still with you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
I got you.
Okay, good.
Whatever the hum was in the background, it's gone.
Yeah,
Bronx.
that's wrong.
He muted.
I think Bronx muted, and that has taken away the that background noise. So what it boils down to is he was an 1,000-yard pass receiver in 14, 15, and 16, and then in 18, and then last year. But in 18 and 19, he barely got over 1,000 yards. In 2017, he was hurt and barely played. And his production has gone downhill. And he is not an old man, but he's
Getting there.
well, I mean, he is an old 28 years old. That's what it boils down to. So I'm not, I'm looking at why. It's obvious that statistically you can point this out, and it's easy to ascribe his absence to Baker Mayfield's ascension. But I wanted to look a little deeper, and I started going over the transcript of what Kevin Stefanski said, which has since been taken down. But I do have the ability to say basically what he said, even if it's not an exact quote. When he was asked about Donovan Peoples-Jones, his comment was very telling. He said, that's a guy who does something and doesn't talk about it. That's our kind of guy. Guy who does his job and then doesn't shoot his mouth off about it.
He called him Mr. Reliable.
Huh?
He said that today he said that Donovan Peoples-Jones was Mr. Reliable and that they can line him up pretty much wherever and count on him. That was essentially what he said.
And if you look at Kevin Stefanski's methodology, it is almost designed to not feature anybody. They say, well, the tight ends are featured. But you can't name me really anybody from the Minnesota Vikings, and I know Tony's with us.
In that way, it's a lot like Todd Haley's system when he first took the field against the Jets. He was hitting whoever was open got the ball.
And that is really what it comes down to. Stefanski isn't interested in big-name players. He's interested in big game players, guys who bring it on the day and do so. There's a confidence, but an efficiency involved. Stefanski is probably the least emotional coach that we've had.
Thank God for that.
I mean, you look at some of the previous coaches we've had. I mean, Shermer was a kumquat. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah,
But he has a temper. He has a temper. Stefanski is very calculating, analytically driven,
Methodical.
and this is the way he goes about his craft. The types of players he desires are players who are efficient, who bring their game, bring their lunchbox, punch the clock, and work hard during their shift. Practice hard, play hard. And that's part of what he's tried to impart to the Cleveland Browns. So much so that there are guys who have not been getting the opportunity to play because they, if Njoku fell down the depth chart, it's because tight end who can catch but won't block. That's why Harrison Bryant jumped ahead of him in the depth chart. And
that's what I said before the season started. He was going to end up jumping ahead and being the number 2 guy.
Well, you could see it simply from camp. I mean, it was just one of those things where, I mean, you could just tell, and it wasn't even close. They were talking about it on Brown. Well, they called it Browns Live for camp. You could clearly tell that there was no competition for the number 2 tight end spot. Harrison Bryant ran away with that.
And again, it is a multifaceted approach. He catches passes, he gets extra yardage after the catch, and he blocks. And he's willingly doing it. And the same thing with Austin Hooper, a guy who doesn't have to have big stats, but when he's on the field, gets things done. It's like gutty players like Treader and Batonio, guys who are able to suck it up and play physical football. It's Nick Chubb, who doesn't have an ego, who's willing to split reps with Kareem Hunt and vice versa. These are the players who are not saying, give me the ball, it has to be about me or whatever. It's none of that. That doesn't go over at this organization right now with this head coach. OBJ flat out doesn't fit in. And you try everything you can try because he is so damn talented. But at the same time, he's shooting his mouth off, and it's about himself all the time. And what and I'm not going to sit here and say that Baker Mayfield is born again. I'm not going to sit there and say that. But I will say that the touchdown pass at the end of the games, you know what the set was? You might have been interested in this, Derek.
I don't remember what it was.
It's something that Kevin Stefanski doesn't do. 4 verts. 4 verts. Yeah. That was what, and the zone coverage that the Bengals utilized was a safety stepping up and a safety deep. Safety had to choose which side of the field to go to, and the Browns surprised them by running a 4 verts situation, which forced the up safety to have to drop back and the middle safety who was deep to try to come over. And by the time he got to Donovan Peoples-Jones, it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and we only had 3 wide receivers that could play. And one of them was a decoy because I think Landry was hurt. But you look at Landry, the college teammate of OBJ, and couldn't be an opposite kind of guy, and they're best friends. But the fact is that Landry is a guy who's not known for the big play. He's the reception guy. He's the guy who catches everything that's near him. And he's a player who would run through a brick wall for you. And he's got a great work ethic.
He's reliable.
Yep. And that's going to come up time and time again. When it's go time, who do you go to? And that's your reliable players. Odell Beckham Jr. is hurt a large percentage of the time, and compared to DK Metcalf, we'll use him as an example after the play he made on Bubba Baker, he's not that fast. He's got great hands, great hand-eye coordination, but OBJ is not nearly as fast as other receivers in the league, and time is taking its toll on him. And there are other players who, if they run the scheme better, are going to be more valuable to the Cleveland Browns than OBJ.
And that's go ahead.
And Rick has said it here and hit the nail on the head. We've talked about Cleveland being a blue-collar city, that everything about the Browns, because of the division they're in, should absolutely reek of physicality, and yet year after year it doesn't happen. You know,
that's the thing with OBJ is it was never natural with these, like what you're seeing right now with a guy like Peoples-Jones. It comes natural. They get that connection. Same thing that happened with Higgins. The connection with Baker and OBJ has always been forced from day one. And if you honestly, there's Browns fans today still trying to tell themselves that it's working out. You are lying to yourself. He's been here for a year and about a half now, and he's clicked maybe twice, maybe. It doesn't work. They've never worked, and they won't work at all.
Well, you tell me. I mean, you can figure it out. The system that we're running is not a system that will glorify multiple wide receivers. It is not a self-gratifying thing for somebody who wants to be big play Charlie. It just doesn't work that way. And if we dropped him at the end of the year, now we're not going to drop him, Pat. I don't think that's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, if you drop him, you'd have to eat $45 million.
Yeah, you're not going to do that.
They can do that.
But the fact is that you cannot play people because of the money you spent on them if they're not what's best for what you're building. And there's no way I'm going to tell you that Donovan Peoples-Jones is a better receiver than OBJ or that Rashard Higgins is. But
they fit within the system.
Within the system, it sure looked to me as if Rashard Higgins knew how to get open and was on the same page as his quarterback every single throw.
Well, and look at this. Once Odell Beckham left that game, Baker, the happy feet stopped. He stepped up in the pocket, and he wasn't locked in on one guy. He was back to reading, going through his reads. If you're open, bam, zip it to you. That's what he did best year one. We didn't know if he could do it again because we haven't seen it for so long. He got back to doing that, not because he didn't have people getting open, but because he wasn't worried about where Odell freaking Beckham was. He seen it, got it there. It's that simple. That's all he has to do in this system to be successful.
Well, the other thing, and Alistair brings up good point, that Stephon Diggs and Thielen were both in the Minnesota system and very successful.
Yep.
And again, the system as it's run is a run-heavy, tight end-centric system that takes shots down the field. The problem is the shots down the field, Odell hasn't been open. There hasn't been separation with our receivers in the secondary. And early on in the game against Cincinnati, it was like, well, their leading defensive back was injured, out, wasn't even playing. And they were just covering us like a blanket. And it's like, what is the problem here?
Well, to touch on Derek's point about the Baker and the happy feet, that's kind of something all quarterbacks go through when they've got an elite, wide receiver like a Randy Moss type game-changing wide receiver. Their first instinct is to get them the ball. You know what I mean?
But you can't stay stuck on that guy when your second and third reads are starting to slip open, and you're still stuck on your number one.
And don't forget that they had 10 targets for Beckham against the Ravens. And what was the final score in that game? 38-6?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and, Pat, defensive coordinators can scheme a lot easier for Higgins and DPJ than they would when accounting for OBJ. But
not really.
And that's what I'm going to say, too. Not really. And the reason is, and I'm not going to tell you that these receivers are the answer to our woes. We need people who are more solid receivers in the fact that they're route runners or whatever. These guys are going to get their chance now because of the circumstances. But the bottom line is that, and I'll go about it a different way and answer and respond to what Pat's saying. If you take a look at the way the ball was distributed, it has not been distributed like this the entire season. 6 to Higgins, 4 to Bryant, 3 to Peoples-Jones, 5 to Landry, 3 to Hunt, 2 to Njoku.
You haven't seen this distributed for 2 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, if there is the feeling, if a defensive coordinator gets a feeling or a hint that you're going to be really staring down Landry in the middle of the field and Odell down the sidelines, you can kind of guess where the ball might be going. You start getting it into a situation, and I'm not going to say Cincinnati's got a horrible defense like we do. I mean, the whole thing was each team giving up points and giving up opportunities to win. But when you spread the ball around to people who run decent, precise patterns and catch the football, and it was funny, one thing that made me laugh is, something Terry Pluto, when he asked, back when, before Donovan Peoples-Jones even was playing, what kind of a receiver are you? How would you describe yourself? And Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins was he was speaking to, and Rashard Higgins said, "I'm the catch the ball kind of receiver." And it sounds kind of funny, and you laugh at it, but we've watched Njoku drop so many passes, and we've seen so many wide receivers that the Browns have had in the past not be able to accomplish the basic chore. To me, it didn't look like Higgins was having trouble separating from that defensive secondary, but it appeared that others, in other circumstances, in other games that we were in, that it wasn't quite so easy. And maybe scheming for 5-6 different people who can catch the ball. I mean, a great example is we tried a screen pass, early in the game, and I think Baker had nervous feet, threw it a little bit hard, and, that was set up, man, on the left side of the field. If Kareem Hunt catches that ball, he's going down the sideline. But
I think Kareem took his eyes off the ball on that one.
He was running before he caught it. Running before he caught it. And it's, big eyes, and you're looking downfield. But utilizing Kareem Hunt, they came back to him later in the game, and the touchdown pass to him, you saw what happened. The linebacker literally ran into his own man and tight end and fell to the ground. I mean, you can only account for so many people. And if you're going to play man-to-man coverage, press coverage, which the Bengals were doing in the beginning of the game, if you do that, you're going to have to account for people. And the more people that you have to account for, the harder it is, the more difficult it is, not the easier it is. You can say, well, they're slower than, but it's all about spacing. It's how you use the field. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Beckham go up for balls and another receiver is right in the same zip code as he is, man, and dragging another defender into the play. I don't know who's not sure what the play is, whether it's Baker, who's discombobulated, whether it's Beckham, whether it's another receiver, but the play blows up. The other thing that Stefanski said is that early in the game, the plays weren't very good. And, you're going to take responsibility and bravo, but to be very honest with you, the plays look mighty good at the end, and you get a rhythm, and the Browns had no rhythm and haven't had a rhythm, in the blowout loss. And I'll tell you what got it all started. And it's simplistic stuff. It's the roll right pass to Jarvis Landry. Pass number 1 of the 21 or whatever in a row, right? It was a play where the flow of the play went to the left. He rolled to the right while he was on the move, threw the ball to Landry, who was crossing the field. That's what started the confidence level, because that's the kind of play. And again, it's about making your quarterback look good. Baker Mayfield, there's things he doesn't do so well. That's true of every quarterback. And people wanted to compare him and Joe Burrow. That's fine. It's a natural thing to compare people. The truth is, there were 2 great throws in that game, in my opinion, 3. And Burrow had one, the bullet that he threw at the end of the first half that gave them the 17-10 lead, where there were 3 Browns in the neighborhood, and that ball was just whizzed in. Now that takes big balls, man. Big balls to throw that ball. That got there fast. I mean, and then for Baker to have a cracked rib, It was the pass that he threw in the end zone touchdown to Harrison Bryant, where it was a short pass, but he wound up and fired that. And it got there so quickly that the defense didn't have a chance to react to it. And then, of course, the final pass to DPJ, that was, right on the money. The back shoulder throws to Higgins were a thing to watch. The pass that I'm amazed Njoku caught in the end zone. Nobody else could have caught that ball but Njoku. And he caught it with his hands, not his body. I mean, the passes were where they were supposed to be. The receivers were where they were supposed to be. And they were working one-on-one. And the thing that was great about Higgins is he adjusted. I don't see that with OBJ. OBJ, if the ball gets underthrown, he just keeps going the other direction. It's almost like he's just pissed off and disappointed about things. Higgins, on the other hand, had two passes that were back shoulder throws, and the one that was on the left sideline that he hauled in, and that was a timed pattern to throw to his back shoulder, and he knew what to do. And the other one that preceded the big play to DPJ was another back shoulder throw where he went up and over the defensive back and adjusted to the ball. And this is the catching the ball business. It's reacting to a play, coordinating yourself and your efforts with the quarterback, and knowing the nuance of the person that you're playing with. And that just didn't seem to be happening. It didn't seem to be happening between OBJ and Baker Mayfield. And I don't know what it is, but it's like whatever Baker was trying to do, Beckham didn't get it. Whatever Beckham was trying to do, Mayfield didn't get it.
I also think that Beckham has a bad tendency to alter his route at the very, very top of it. So he ends up in a weird space, and the ball goes where he's supposed to be, according to the drawing. But when it comes to actual practice or in a game, he's 3, 5, 7 yards away from where the ball is supposed to be.
Now, the other side of the coin, getting away from OBJ and taking a look at the bigger picture, is, all of the ass licking now going on with Baker Mayfield. I mean, watching Ryan Clark on ESPN have to eat his words and say, Baker Mayfield really did lead them to the win. And reading Mary J. Cabbagehead reminding us how bad Baker's statistics were for the last 5 quarters that he played. And then before she says what a great game he ended up playing. These people don't, they double down on the insults. The fact of the matter is that Baker Mayfield has been great in some games that he's played in and lousy in others. And he's playing for a team for a 3-year period that ain't the same team, that don't have the same personnel, that don't have the same coaches. I mean, it's an up and down business, and it's tough. And if you don't believe it's tough, I'm going to bring up another subject because, again, there are sacred cows. There are sacred cows in every business, in every walk of life. You can't say bad things about certain people. If you knew that Mother Teresa was accepting bribes, you wouldn't come out publicly with it because you'd get your head cut off. Nobody wants to talk bad about Bill Belichick. Nobody. Because he's future Hall of Fame coach Bill Belichick. But I will point out to you again that without Tom Brady, he is a sub 500 and substantially sub 500 coach. And his team was embarrassed, 30-6. Brady, in a system he didn't even know, has turned the Buccaneers around to 5-2. The proof is in the pudding. And if there are no sacred cows. Baker Mayfield is not a sacred cow, but he's not a doormat either, for Christ's sake. We're 5-2. And then you'll say, You get the people who say, the negative Brown fans, oh, but it's the easiest schedule. And it's like, but we lose against the easiest schedule in years past. You're winning. Shut the fuck up.
And not only that,
how many years did they go 4-12 against supposedly the third easiest schedule in the NFL?
Yeah, if
with
you've been a fan for
fucking the
decades,
Cody
yeah.
Kesslers and Hogans and who the fuck else, you know?
Well,
Brandon Weeden.
not only that, yeah, people are going to say, well, yeah, Baker did that against the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, yeah, you're right. And
Brandon Marshall said that shit.
He does need to come out and perform against the good teams too. I mean, that is a fair assessment, but at least he's doing it. For a season and a half, we have not seen Baker calm and passing from the pocket. We have not seen him throwing to his open receivers, trusting anybody, taking chances, and you finally seen that. So yes, was it against the Bengals? Yeah, it was. But you know what? Now, let's see if he does it against the Raiders. And if he does it against the Raiders, let's see if he can do it against the Texans. Step by step.
And no quarterback has great weeks every week, but they're more consistent. And the team effort overall needs to be more consistent. And there has to be the feeling that all the men of the boat are rowing in the same direction. That has to be, the case. And that's right, Rick. And, after the game, of course, Cam Newton, who's one of those players who's got to flap his gums and talk instead of show it on the field, all that Superman shit was just self-publicity. I'm Superman. Fuck that shit. Cam Newton never amounted to a hill of beans. And the reason is Cam Newton. I mean, he wanted all of this press and all of this attention. Well, now he's getting it. He's getting it in New England. And he said, I'm embarrassed by being benched. But the fact of the matter is, he's 31 years old, with the exception of the one Super Bowl appearance. He hasn't done shit. He hasn't been shit since he hurt his shoulder. And he's been given a chance, and he's being given a longer leash by Belichick, who doesn't have a quarterback. Go figure. All those years that he had Tom Brady, they never had a backup. Oh, Brian Hoyer's good enough. Another wrong judgment by asshole Bill Belichick, who is an asshole, who has gotten away with bullying and shitting on his own players because he had Tom Brady, who won. Who demanded excellence? Well, Belichick. But so did Brady. And you see him yelling at his teammates in Tampa Bay, trying to instill in them the kind of discipline that they need to have to win. But Belichick can't turn shit players, washed up players, Jason Stidham or Cam Newton or Brian Hoyer into winning quarterbacks. Let's not spin and fabricate reality. Bill Belichick is only as good as the players who play for him. And when the whole system goes down to hell, the whole thing goes to hell because he doesn't have a leader on the field. Everything that Bill Belichick is, he owes to Tom Brady. I watched Bill Belichick in Cleveland. I watched him in New York. He didn't have a clue. You know why? He didn't have a quarterback. Don Shula. Take a look at Don Shula's career. Post Bob Greasy, and then Dan Marino, and then you look at the ups and downs and the fortunes of head coaches who don't have quarterbacks. There aren't very many who can coach up players who are just mediocre, and the Browns have a defense that is sub-mediocre. That's why they give up 30-plus points every single game. They're not very good.
We have two players, Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. Joe Burrow's a fine-looking young quarterback. I got nothing bad to say about this young man. He's a fine-looking quarterback. But how long is he going to be a fine-looking quarterback if they don't put defenses on the field to get the ball in his hands? Yeah, the fact of the matter is he's throwing for 400 yards, but he's throwing the ball every time. Giovanni Bernardo is not going to be the guy who's going to carry the load. Mixon gone, they don't have a backup running back.
Hey,
And
Moo.
then their offensive line went down one by one. They're going to be hurt. They're going to come up next week lame. Joe Burrow, the question isn't how good he can be. It's whether he'll ever get the chance playing for that organization. And Mike Brown, is he ever going to get the chance to be as good as he could be? Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it in the chat or not, but it just came out that Everson Griffin has been made available for trade. Is that something you would be interested in?
I would need to look at the player and educate myself more. I am so Browns centric that I do not, I could not even be in a position, honestly, I'm ignorant about that.
He's a defensive end. He's a pass rusher.
Be better than Vernon, I think.
I think you need to focus on getting a replacement for Sendejo, or some more defensive secondary help, or linebackers or defensive.
Well, you're a Minnesota fan. Why don't you get in touch with your front office and tell them Cleveland has something to offer?
Hey, Anthony Harris, give us a call. We're selling everybody right now. So.
I mean, right now, anybody would be in play based on the way the defense is performing. And again, you take a look at the stats of the football game, which we didn't do post-game, and you want to know what the scariest thing is? The scariest, if you're Cincinnati and your defense goes on the field with a quarterback who literally tells Spiro Ditas and the broadcast team before the game, the day before, that his ribs are no better, and you come up with a 0-sack game. I mean, how could that be? How in the hell can that be? The Browns sacked Burrow 4 times, and it wasn't nearly enough for the number of times he threw. But the fact is that Burrow is forced to become a shotgun quarterback who quickly looks around the field and gets rid of the ball as quickly as he can. You take away, if you have quality, and this is what happened when God forbid, when he played the Ravens, he was annihilated. And the reason was they can play press coverage and take that with a man-to-man. They got island covers, and they take away that first option. And when he's in pressed in the pocket collapses, and he's got to run sideways, not straight up the field. You saw what happened when Myles Garrett ran him down. It's not that Joe Burrow is the fastest guy in the world. It's I mean, he looked like he was Baker running out of the pocket. I mean, Garrett just ran him down and stripped him. And you've got 3 offensive linemen now hurt for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know what's going to happen in their next game. But they already a backup center. Have we heard anything with that?
Billy Price?
Billy Price is the backup guy who he played snaps last year, but that's not real good. If he couldn't win a job on that team, it's not a good thing. But a couple of guys,
it caused a near turnover.
That's right. And I think that the players. A guy like Burrow, if he's forced to play in front of second-string offensive linemen, which is what's happened in Cleveland with so many quarterbacks, very fine young quarterback, but for how long?
We've seen this before. Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I mean,
retired at 29.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes.
I'll say one even before that. David Carr.
Yeah. I mean, it's
literally beat out of the league.
And there's no quit in Joe Burrow, believe me. I mean, I see a real spark in him, but the question is, how many years has it been for Cincinnati? How many years is it going to be? I mean, fine, A.J. Green pushed off a few times and caught a few passes. Who is the next A.J. Green?
They hope
Higgins?
Yeah, they hope it's Higgins.
They hope it's T. Higgins. But there isn't anybody who.
And Boyd caught 13 goddamn passes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the quarterback is finding the people against a defensive secondary as we did. Baker Mayfield never should be in a position to complete 21 to 22 passes. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
And the one incompletion was to clock the ball. So I don't even know if you can count that.
No, I mean, it's a statistical thing.
Yeah.
But you can't play a guy with sore ribs and not sack him once. And in the most meaningful drive of the day, you score, you're on an all-time high. You got 12,000, the max that they allow in the stadium. And hey, we're going to win. We've got 1:06. They got no freaking timeouts, man. And it will take us over to another game. You have Atlanta and Detroit.
Oh boy.
And, so you have a running back who tries to not score. All right. Now I got to ask, Todd Gurley is paid to cross the goal line. And if you're going to take the lead in a game and the other team only has a minute left, if your defense isn't good enough, and the thing I don't understand about this game, and
the Eagles did that against did that same goddamn thing against the Cowboys. I forget if it was Westbrook or if it was Sproles. One of them purposely took a knee at the 1 yard line to keep the clock running, rather than score the touchdown.
But did you see what happened this weekend? I know you don't watch college football, but that's how Penn State got beat. They ran right in. Indiana got the ball back, marched downfield, scored, 2-point conversion, game over.
Yeah, Penix.
But in this particular game, a 23 to 22 game, what is it that would make the Atlanta Falcons feel that a team that had only scored 22 points against them for the game would be that big of a threat with 1 minute and limited resources? They have to go 75 yards to beat you. Or, so what is there? I mean, there's one thing in the shootout, like the Browns game, where, I wasn't comfortable giving the Bengals the ball back with 11 seconds left in the game, but, somebody's got to make a fucking play. I mean, it's not Todd Gurley's job to lay down on the 1 foot yard line and let the clock run. You go in and you score the goddamn touchdown and take the lead, because you don't know if you drop to the ground, the next snap could be fumbled by the quarterback and you never get a chance to get it into the end zone, and you lose that way. You don't take points off the board, plain and simple. And the reason that he did this was obviously because he didn't have faith in his defense. That's the only possible explanation. Or the coach told him, or somebody planted a seed and said to him, you might want to think about this, because we don't trust our defense. I only gave up, you only give up, 23 points. Up to that point, we're talking about 16 points you've given up. Now, come on. I sound like Joe Biden. Come on.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Rub my hairy legs.
So, I mean, again, giving the ball to Baker Mayfield with 1 minute and 6 seconds left and 0 timeouts, you should be in the catbird seat at your home stadium. You're riding a high. Sendejo got beat in the end zone again. And, everything's going just swimmingly for you. But now, if you're Joe Burrow, what do? You can't score enough points because the defense gives up more than you can get. How are you going to have faith in the defense? How are the Browns going to have faith in their defense? It's wonderful that Baker Mayfield was able to get his rocks off, but the fact of the matter is when he came back and took the lead in that game, you want to intercept that ball that was dropped. You want the defense to make a goddamn play to contribute to the win. The defense did not contribute to this.
They did nothing.
And neither defense did. It's very hard for a quarterback not to feel pressured.
Well, Denzel Ward early had some pretty key plays, but Other
Correct.
than that, not really.
Yeah, the defense kept the team in the game in the first quarter with the
Yeah.
two Denzel Ward plays and the strip sack by Garrett and the recovery by Harrison. But the Bengals had none of those plays. So, but the Bengals never punted the entire game, nor did they give up the ball on fourth down either. So,
Right. I mean, when Baker's the reason you beat San Francisco, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Seattle, etc., you've got a case. Well, Baker isn't paid to beat San Francisco, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Seattle. The Cleveland Browns are paid to beat those teams. You got to have a freaking roster, Tim. I mean, and if you're saying if Joe Burrow had a middle of the pack defense, he'd beat them. Well, if we had a middle of the pack defense, what would Joe Burrow do? I mean, these are all.
And my response to that is in 2 or 3 years, Burrow might, if he can remain healthy enough to take advantage of that.
Do I think Burrow has more upside than Baker? He's got more height. He can see better, and he's very accurate.
He runs better.
Yeah. I mean, he's got raw materials, but he's playing for an organization that traditionally has not been able to get a middle of the pack anything for ages, and they've been dwelling in the cellar with us. But we have to stop this. When Baker is the reason that you beat, there's so many.
How many Super Bowls does Aaron Rodgers have? And he's the sole reason that the Packers have won any games. But when it comes to the playoffs, the complete teams demolish the Packers and knock them out.
Yeah. What about, Jimmy Garoppolo is the reason for what? I mean, I can name quarterback after quarterback, Tim, who, the job of being quarterback is being a leader. He's getting people lined up in the right position. He's reading plays pre-snap and coverages pre-snap, and he's making wise decisions. That's the job.
Moo, that's exactly what you said there with Jimmy Garoppolo. He wasn't the reason why the Niners got to the Super Bowl, but that system, this Kyle Shanahan zone run, the system that we're running here now in Cleveland, it doesn't require Baker Mayfield to be spectacular. The run game is number one. We have two of the best backs in the league. We got a great offensive line for this scheme. He doesn't have to be perfect. We don't need him.
Oh, and that's such bullshit, Tim. Lamar is part of the fucking team. They have a goddamn good defense. They have a top 5 defense year in, year out.
Yeah.
That's why the Ravens are good.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
No, I mean, look, Lamar is a good player. I mean, really a fantastic athlete. Hasn't won a single playoff game. Okay, let's be honest. He's 0 for playoffs so far. He'll have a chance to correct that. And the team he's playing for, there is an extremely solid defense so that the pressure isn't on him. In the games that he's fallen behind, he never comes back and wins, period. All right? Let's be honest about it, Tim. When you fell behind the Browns last year, he was lost. When he had to throw on every down, Baker Mayfield had to throw on every down at the end of this game and won the football game. And yes, it was against the Bengals. I know. But Lamar was against the Browns and Freddie Kitchens, and he lost because he couldn't throw on every down. He fell behind too far. He's not God. No quarterback is. If you're looking for the LeBron James effect of somebody who raises everybody, the Ravens and their head coach are built on a defensive foundation. And you know something? They got lucky with Lamar. Because they didn't know that he could throw the ball that accurately. They knew that they could create an offense that would stymie teams with their running game. That's what Harbaugh's ideal was with the Ravens, because he's a defensive coordinator.
You know what they did?
Extra running back on the field at all times. It was not about the forward pass. Come on.
With their GMs last year, what he said was, "Hey, I'm going to take a flyer and I'm going to hit big or I'm going to miss." And I guarantee you, if he wasn't retiring after that draft, they would not have picked Lamar, because that was going into that draft. He could not hit the broadside of a barn. Go back to his combine. They had to develop him. They completely changed the system. They relied off of their defense, and they did what worked with Lamar. And now he's become a competent passer. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I hope, Tim, you're referring to Brian. I'm just pointing out, I think Lamar has become, and I talked to people in the press, and Brandon Howard was the guy, and we went back and forth about Lamar, and big supporter. And a lot of people were really getting down on Brandon because he's African American, and Lamar's African American, and Brandon has made it publicly known that he wants more of a push for minority quarterbacks, and which is fine. But I did not believe, based on what I saw, that he had the requisite arm and the background to be able to come into the league and be anything but a scrambling quarterback. I'm wrong about that. But
it took time. He developed in the system.
But show me, you talking about, when Baker can beat these teams, let's get Lamar back into the playoffs and see if he can beat any of them, because so far he has not.
And it's not like Lamar is the only one on the fucking field running around out dueling 11 defensive players on every goddamn play. Okay? There's 11 Ravens, there's 11 defensive players. He's got 3 great fucking running backs. He's got a great goddamn tight end. Okay, let's not pretend like, it's all Lamar running around being super chicken. Come on.
Okay. Now this explains it. All right. So I understand, Tim. I mean, I get it. All right. I'm not going to convince you of anything. I personally have and D-Bag, who's also a Ravens fan, will tell you, I got no gripe about the Ravens. And Lamar Jackson's been fantastic for them. But I'm just pointing out that the standard that you're holding to Baker Mayfield to, which is you got to beat these teams, you got to prove you can beat them. Lamar Jackson has to prove that he can win in the playoffs. And he's very young, and he probably will. Harbaugh may not. Harbaugh plays so close to the vest that I'm afraid that he is going to Marty Schottenheimer his team. That would be, and if teams with big offenses, and I think the word kryptonite, does that mean anything to you, Tim? When your starting quarterback reveals to the press that the Kansas City Chiefs are your kryptonite, what he's really saying is they can put too many points on the board and I'm behind too much and I don't win that way, because the Ravens win from in front, not from behind. That's the way they're built. They get a lead, and God help your soul, they play physical football defensively, and they can run that football and eat that clock up. They're really good that way. They're great from in front, but they're not good from behind. So that is the problem. And you're going to run into teams like the Chiefs that have really outstanding offensive schemes, and your defense may not be able to account for the sheer speed of the Tyreek Hills and the people who are, explosive all over the field. And if you fall behind, you're going to find yourself thinking of my ugly fat face and telling you that, in order to be the quarterback, you got to be able to run and throw, and you got to have an understanding of your system and composure, and not try to do too much yourself. And Lamar, so far, if he has shown one weakness, is that when he falls behind, he makes foolish mistakes and he tries too hard. And that's what Baker does too. It's what all quarterbacks do. They want to win.
Well,
but man can't get it done.
How about when the Ravens play the Steelers? What happens if the the Steelers take away that Ravens run game and they force Lamar to beat you throwing? It's the same thing they did to the Browns. And the Ravens have a way better defense, obviously, but, you got to be able to adapt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm look, and y'all took our football team. I have no bitterness about that because Art Modell was a scoundrel, and it's the way it goes.
A dead broke scoundrel, no less.
Yeah, but we have a football team back, so I'm not embittered about that. Now the Steelers, I don't like. I don't like Mike Tomlin. I don't like the attitude of the players. I don't like the way they play the game. The Ravens, I like the way they play the game. I like the way the Ravens draft. I like how the pieces that they fill in when they have departing people from the offensive line or departing people from the linebacking core, how they fill in those slots. I think they're really good, and I think they're a really fine football team. And
not only that, they just added 2 goddamn top-notch defensive players.
Yeah, I mean, they're really good. I mean, and I don't expect Baker Mayfield to be able to beat the Ravens by himself. And you say, the Browns fans say it's roster. Well, yeah, players do add up, and we don't have the caliber of team speed and skill set as what the Ravens have. And that's the organization's fault here in Cleveland for not drafting as well as the Ravens have. I don't know what you want me to say, except the standard that you're holding Baker to, you have to hold for Jackson as well. I mean, it's just that way.
Look at the Ravens organization. They just switched from one general manager to the other with literally no dip. They went from drafting well, signing free agents well, good structure, then to this new GM, same exact thing, if not better.
And he's added some good trades.
Yes.
Oh, by the way.
And this comment should pretty well shut down the discussion, because I see, I'm not dealing with the sharpest knife in the drawer here. I mean, you can name any really good young quarterback, and of course the Ravens wouldn't be.
That's like saying the Seahawks aren't that good without
Russell Wilson. I mean, come on, that's stupid. That's just stupid. I mean, every team can say the same thing. And you know something? Last year's Patriots aren't as good without Tom Brady. So what is your point? That you got to have a really good quarterback to win it all? Mostly. Sometimes not. Sometimes, a game manager.
The Ravens won 2 fucking Super Bowls with average quarterback play.
It can be done. It can be done. But
the Niners almost did it last year with Jimmy Garoppolo.
But the teams who are consistently in the playoffs, there are always teams, whether it was Drew Brees when he was in his prime, big offenses, and Dan Fouts, who didn't do anything in the playoffs, Dan Marino, who never won the big one, but was in the playoffs. Big quarterbacks, big name quarterbacks who do a great job. Then the Tom Brady's who do get the job done and win multiple Super Bowls. And yes, Mahomes is a fine young quarterback. But yeah, you're not going to have anybody who's going to, compare to Mahomes. And Kansas City, as an organization, has not had a quarterback in recent years, They were the team that tried to bring Joe Montana over when you could knock Joe Montana over with a good gust of wind. It doesn't work.
He did beat John Elway in the playoffs. That was.
And Bill Belichick, who a big Trump supporter, Bill Belichick, Mr. Brainiac, Bill Belichick, he's learned very quickly that you can't win without Tom Brady, but he can't even be respectable without Tom Brady. His team is an embarrassment. The New England Patriots are a team that is an absolute apoplectic shock right now.
Wonder if OBJ still wants to go to the Patriots like he's always wanted to.
And you know something? Belichick could have had Garoppolo. He had him. He could have played him. They got rid of him. Why? Because they had Tom Brady. Tom Brady was being protected. He was going to stay there forever. And
that was a Bob Kraft thing.
It may have been a
Bob Kraft thing. Made him fucking get rid of them because Tom went crying to Bob Kraft.
No. In the end, Bill Belichick can't win without Tom Brady. And until I see him do it, where he hasn't now with 3 teams, I will be convinced otherwise. All right? So No, every team has a leader, and if you take that leader off the field, they're not going to be as good.
The Bengals aren't as good without Joe Burrow. Hello? I mean, they've won one goddamn game, but they wouldn't have won any without Joe Burrow. They wouldn't have the tie without Joe Burrow.
Way to go, Pat. Nobody was talking about the 6-0 Steelers with Duck Devlin.
Quack, 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 quack.
I mean, it's.
I mean, they were talking about the Mason Rudolph ran Steelers, but for a different reason.
What you're saying is obvious, Tim. It's obvious. And,
Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And we're not raving about his play against Cincy. We're raving about the fact that the Browns didn't fucking quit. Because in years past, they've lost those games and lost them badly. The 38-6s continued for 3 or 4 games, and then finally they wake up and win a close one, 16-12 or whatever.
But how can you be mad that Baker started 0 for 5 with an interception and then went 21, 300 yards, 5 touchdowns? How can you be mad at that? It doesn't matter that it's the Bengals. The fact that he did it in the first place tells you a lot. Not every guy can just, name a quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you think Baker's so terrible, throw Gardner Minshew out there. Throw anybody. Seriously, you can say Baker sucks all you want and he's the problem and whatever, but the bottom line is what he did Sunday, even though it was against the Bengals, shows you a lot about his drive, shows you a lot about this team, and the fact that, he can still do it, just got to get it consistently.
It shows that he has character, and for all the criticism that he's taken in the flack from national press, from local press, people want him to fail. He willed his team back into a game that really the defense didn't deserve to win in Cleveland. We have to be fair about this. Neither defensive squad deserved to win that game. But the fact that Baker Mayfield willed that team, showed composure, is something that he was being criticized that he lacked. So, that's important. Before we get out of here, Ohio State came out asleep and then woke up. All right. But they better get a better running game. Quarterback's wonderful. Fields is wonderful. And the offense in Ohio State, the wide receivers, my goodness, that's going to be a real show to watch.
That freshman receiver that made that toe tap in the end zone, Jackson Smith and Jigba, he was rated the 5th of the freshman receivers coming in. So that tells you how good of a class this is.
This is an explosive offensive team. But, I wanted to point out that Graham Mertz, the kid who set a record for his first game at Wisconsin, is now COVID positive.
21 games out.
And it's, a minimum of 21 days that he's got to be out now. And again, this is what lurks behind Big Ten and collegiate football. And it changes seasons. It changes people's, the way a team can operate.
Unless you're Nick Saban, you get it the same day and you're coaching on Saturday.
And again, and I know that there are people who will say that COVID's not a big deal and that we're rounding the turn. Whatever the fuck that means. We're rounding the turn. It sounds like Jackie Stewart. Round and round the track they go, and we're rounding the turn. And COVID by a nose at the finish line. That's the bottom line. Is that's a specter that hangs over collegiate sports, and that can get out of hand real quick. And I hope it doesn't, because believe me, I like to watch sports. We all like to watch a good game, and I hope it doesn't waste the NFL too. We're having such a fun time in Cleveland, being 5-2. And for us, that's exciting business. And, we're going to play the Ravens again and the Steelers again. We'll see how we improve. And it's going to be without OBJ. So all of the things that we're talking about will come home to roost. We're going to see how spreading the responsibilities around more guys is going to affect our chances against some better teams, and whether we can really get into a very solid kind of regimented offensive team. You can't complain about the number of points the Browns have scored, except against two tremendous defenses in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So that's what it is.
And with OBJ being out, and you've seen what Baker did, this could potentially, we'll see how he goes or how he performs throughout the rest of the season. But if he does what he did, especially like in that second half, distributing the ball, getting it to guys who are open, that could be what keeps him in Cleveland, or at least signing the 5th-year option for sure. Because if they can see that on a consistent level, you have to keep him.
Yeah, well, and I think at this point you're really invested in Baker Mayfield, and that probably will make some Pittsburgh and Baltimore fans very happy. But there is no explanation how the Russell Wilsons and the Patrick Mahomeses drop in the draft and become as great as they are, and the Sam Darnolds and the Johnny Manziels, and we're going to see how Miami's young quarterback does. We're going to see how that all goes down.
But another thing, we got to stop holding all these young quarterbacks to a standard of Pat Mahomes. Not everybody is that level of a player.
Yeah, I mean, but nobody knew. Somebody had an inkling. I mean, John Dorsey had an inkling that Patrick Mahomes could be a real addition to the team, but nobody knew he's going to be this good. Because again, it's a lot like guys who hit minor league pitching. They hit the fastball. They take a look at the split and the 12 to 6 curveball and they can't hit it. There are other guys who, like Victor Martinez, who just slow as hell, can't run, would never be able to beat out an infield single in his life, but he hit 300 wherever he played. That's just, some guys get better as the level that they're playing with gets better. And it's a processing thing. For a baseball hitter, it's seeing how the ball comes out of the hand of the pitcher. And it doesn't matter how fast the guy's throwing, it's how quickly you can conceptualize what's being thrown to you. And at a quarterback, that's exactly what's being thrown at the quarterback defensively. His ability to make split-second decisions. And Mahomes is gifted that way, and other quarterbacks just stand in the pocket and get slaughtered like Brandon Weeden, and they never show the ability to do that. So
if you want to watch a really good game, go look up Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Go watch the Mahomes Baker wars they had in college. Unbelievable. And I'm not just saying that because it's Baker and that's our guy, but I mean, you want to talk about, you seen what Burrow and Baker have done in these two Bengals games, just going back and forth. That was what they did, Baker and Mahomes in college times 12. It is unbelievable.
Yeah. And, look, Baker wouldn't be where he is if he couldn't play the game. The thing is that you got to put him in a position where he can thrive, and hopefully spreading the ball around and playing people who he has real chemistry with can help him along more. And because he needs help, it isn't just other things like the defense that need help. The quarterback needs to be coached up and needs help. And the same thing is true of Lamar Jackson. You can't get down because Kansas City whips you twice, because there's a good likelihood you're going to see him again. You can't let a guy get down. So no Jerry Springer homilies,
What the fuck?
Yeah, I would, and I would include Tim in my Jerry Springer homily, but I don't want to do that. But I will say thanks a lot to everybody for tuning into this edition of Moohead Radio. We're going to be back to talk about the Raiders game. The Raiders interesting story there. And I'll leave, this will be the lead in to Friday's show. What in the hell happened in that game when you are down 24-17 and you have a 4th and 2 and you're playing against Tom fucking Brady and you kick the goddamn field goal and you get to 24-20 with 9:56 left to go in the 4th quarter? You don't try to tie the game, you settle for the 3, and you give up 24 more points in the 4th quarter. What in the hell? I mean, do you think these things don't have repercussions? That's a terrible coaching decision because you can't.
And that's a huge reason the Browns have an actual chance in this game.
Yeah, I mean, a 4-point lead for Tom Brady with the ball in his hands. Bye-bye. I mean, you got to at least tie the game up. You got to have faith in Carr and your offense in that situation. And by pulling the plug with about 10 minutes left to go in the game, what you basically told them is, well, it's the defense's game to win or lose. And boy, did they lose it. So we have a lot to talk about on Friday, and we'll be talking about the Raiders and what our chances might be. And that game's in Cleveland, right, Bronk?
Yes, it is.
All right, so we'll see. With 12,000
1 o'clock start.
A lot of noise. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you again Friday, same time, same place. Until next time, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Bye.